Hi, if you are someone who uses AI in their workflow to build their next dream SaaS application and you don't know what databases are, what Postgres is, then I have created a guide for you where I will be explaining what databases are, why Postgres is the most chosen alternative, and how to install it in the localhost. And I will tell you my favorite VS Code extension in this video. I'm Samik and I've created more than 6 applications in past 6 months, all using AI and prompts. So this puts me in a position to give you the most extracted resource surface level view to understand what databases are, how to use them, and enhance your productivity with your SaaS application development time. So let's get into it. So I've created a guide that is called Postgres, explained like you are 5. What exactly is Postgres? But before that, what is database? So in my previous video, I have told you that there are like two parts, that is front end and back end, where the communication goes. Whatever you see in the browser, that is your front end, and whatever logic it runs in the background, that is your back end. So there is problem, that is data is never stored here, like users data, admins data, any information like your pay slip, payment information, your transaction, subscription, failure rates, analytics, all those are stored in something called database. The reason is, whenever these servers restart, whenever you build and push new changes, they store the data, everything in local storage, or maybe something in browser storage, and maybe something in their storage, and that is all related to memory. So it is not persisted, we call that non-persisted data. So that means those are not stored, and whenever you restart something, whenever you are restarting your laptop or browser or something like that, those are erased and new data are created, and that's where database was needed, and that's why database is needed. So what exactly database does? Database stores the information with of whatever we have for text, and it stores the data information in the database. So you can consider that it is a disk which stores the information and data in text format. For files and other format, we store that in something called S3 buckets. So I will cover that in some future videos, but right now we will focus on database. So this is the actual logic. So whenever your front end and backend communicates, actually your backend gets all the data, all the information, everything from the database. So your backend cannot do anything if it doesn't have a data. So let me make you something clear. So earlier maybe you are building in tax filing SaaS application, and you are storing your users data, your users name and everything, and at the same time you're storing your users accounts detail. So your user will do everything, submit it to front end, your backend will process it. Okay, so this is the user and I have to store this user's data in particular database. So here in database, uh, different tables will be created, or different rows column relationship, key value relationship will be created. So your backend, according to the database type, it will make sure that your data are mapped. So your backend will do the heavy lifting, but the database will do the extraction, reading, deleting, and updating. So this is what the database, we play with the data. So this is how we do it. So let's understand what are the two databases which I mentioned, that is SQL and NoSQL. So let's understand what is SQL and NoSQL. So you can say this is a particular row and column. So if you are using Excel, and if you are using Google Sheet, and if you have defined particular fixed columns, then that particular sheet is your SQL database. You can visualize that way. So for example, this header will be fixed, and this like columns will be fixed, and if you want to increase the column, you can increase the column, but it should be increased for all the rows. Your every row should have the same column. So that's why you can see fixed columns equals to SQL, and it is predefined earlier, and each row has to abide the fixed columns. So each row should have the data of the fixed column. It can be null also, it can be zero also, but it will contain that column data. So this is what we call, so whatever we store in table, that is our SQL. But what happens in NoSQL is that, again, visually if you see from the outside, it is actually table format, but there is a slight catch, that for example it stores in key value care. So it, for example, this is one A, and maybe for example this is one username, and here it can store many multiple items. So maybe this is the data it contains. So this is something it can contain. So this is one user's data, and again this is stored in their like key value pair. So this is will be key, maybe key 1, and that is the value 1, then key 2, then value 2. And again for different user we will, okay, so let me put the right tag. So this is for the one user 1. So this will be again like this one. So if I do this one, so user 1. So this is the user 1's data. So this is one row. For example, user 1, like user 1, that is one row, and the value is a key, that particular, maybe it can be anything like usernames, user's first name, user's last name, user mobile number, that can be anything. But at the same time, if I copy this one, let me copy this one. Let me do again a copy. Now this particular user can skip this item. So like for example, maybe this is user B. So user B can have only one key. So you can see key 2 is not needed. So this is called flexibility. Again, if you want to add key 3, you can add. So this is called SQL, like this is flexible. Each row can have their own variable columns. So it doesn't have to match with other like rows. And this is why for the flexibility people use NoSQL. And if you are very comfortable with table relationship, then you should use SQL. And now we will understand why SQL is preferred. So basically for logic and error handling, SQL is preferred. So when you have fixed columns, fixed everything, so you know what are the parameters that particular row contains, and you can filter it out properly. So for better logic, for better error handling, SQL is preferred. So this is what my understanding is. I can be wrong, but again I have seen that when I work with SQL databases, I get better results. And if you want your rows to have flexible columns, so you must be thinking, no, I don't know what column should go. You don't have any idea what columns will go in the future, what data will go. For example, you are storing one user chat data. So I am communicating with you and we have a user chat data. So it can be non-flexible. It can be a array. Okay, so it can be a long form. So that can be stored in JSON-B, like non-flexible items inside each row. So each row will know that, okay, this is the chat column, and chat column can have flexible data, and for that we JSON-B, and obviously Postgres supports it. And even it supports a lot of things you can't even imagine. It supports vector formatting. Like for example, if you want to like have vector database for your RAG application, then also you can use Postgres. So it comes with lot of implementation. And if you want to see what are the next, like what are the items provided by the Postgres, you should watch Fireshift video on Postgres. He has spent everything very quietly and he has given why Postgres is so powerful. So obviously you can see that and understand why Postgres is adopted in mainstream media. And that's why Postgres is used widely. Now let's come into the commands. And this is very important because, okay, I've understood. And let me tell you one thing, why Postgres, you should choose why Postgres. My personal recommendation is choosing Postgres because AI know what Postgres is. There are a lot of community documentation, there are a lot of community support. So if there is any error which you are getting, you can always go and read that log. You can always ask AI, so it will have previous knowledge to understand what is going behind the scene, and it can generate commands, it can write particular SQL queries. So that's why Postgres is very adopted. So you should use that. And if you're using AI, then you don't have to care about what is going behind the scene. So use what is adopted by the AI. Now let's come to the installation. So the first installation command you should always remember. So this is actually for installing and how to install it. So this is, you can see if I just zoom it. So this is the first command, and that is pre-install PostgreSQL. So it will install the Postgres 14 or the latest Postgres which is required in your computer. So it, again, I'm telling this for Mac, for different application it will be different. But after that, this PG ready, I think it is same. So what it will do, it will tell in which port your database is there. So you can see a temporary 543 and it is accepting connections. Now if I want to see in which localhost it is there, so I can write PG is ready, then H, then localhost. Again, I didn't know these commands. AI has given me these commands to check whether my database is running or not, if my database has stopped working or not. So for that, these commands are required. And for example, if you use Wasp, but there is one starter kit of Wasp. So if you use that one, so they use Docker directly. So they don't use this brew Postgres. So they use directly from the Docker, and that at that time you have to close this particular Postgres. So you have to understand how to close, how to stop, how to start. So again, if you use brew services to stop PostgreSQL, it will stop the PostgreSQL. So if I do this, you can say it has stopped. Now if I do this, there is no response. And if I do this, again there is no response. Now what you have to do, you have to start the PostgreSQL. For starting, you can say like this one, start. So if I do this one, and you can see this is activated. Now if I do this, it is accepting connections. So this is something which you really need to know. And this is one of the commands which I wanted to tell you guys. So okay, again copy this, store it in your item, and it will always run in the background. So once you have done this, now it is about create a Postgres super user with with a password. So you can see this is the command which I wanted to tell, and that is psql d postgres create role postgres with login super user password postgres. So this is the password and this is the role. So by default there is the role which is your computer name. So for example, let me tell you what is the by default name. It is not getting copied. Let me copy everything. So you can see in this particular item, let me go to the terminal again. So what happens is that this is, you can see, can you see my name? Okay. So there is no username coming right now. But let's see whether I can see whether I can get all the data about me or not. Okay, so there is no username coming about me. So whatever your username is there in the terminal, that particular username will be your username in your Postgres database, and I think password will be empty or something like that. Or I'm not sure about that password. So even if you're not sure, no worries, just copy the first command, paste it. So this particular command I'm talking about. So if you paste this one, so if you paste this one, that is psql d postgres c create role postgres. So we are creating a role postgres with login super password, that is Postgres. So again, you can choose your password, you can choose your username, that is up to you. This is the standard. If you do this, this will be very easy to run projects. You don't have to remember the password and username. You know, okay, both are Postgres, so you can prompt easily to AI and you can easily remember everything. So if I do this, already my Postgres is created, so you can see role Postgres already exists. But if you don't want to create role Postgres, you can obviously use different one. Now if I want to create database, how to create database? So you can go here, and again I will copy this one. So this will create a new database. So let me this one again. So this particular will create a new database. So there is no database name exist right now in my database, so it will create a new database, and you can see it has created new database. And similarly, if you have some tables inside your database, you can delete it, and again you have to give condition. So you can see you just have to use delete from ports, and again you have to give a condition where user ID is something, user email is something like that. So to give the condition. So this is how you can edit, you can do operations, and again you don't have to remember this part. You can always ask AI to generate it first. So let's get into it, how to use cursor for your next database operations. So let's click on cursor. Okay, so now if I press the inline edit, and you can see in the bottom you can see I can select the items, and now here I can give instructions. So I can say create a database, maybe create a database random q2. So in psql, username is Postgres. So username is very important. If you don't give the username, it will try to do it by default, and if it does by default, it will not create the username because you have created the super role Postgres. So if I do this, it will generate the command for me. And similarly, if you want to delete something, if you want to do something, it will create the command. So if I use this particular command, it will create a random YouTube database. Now let's talk about how to I've talked about how to generate the commands. I've talked about how to use cursor to generate database commands, how to manipulate data. You can do that. Now we have skipped one of the important part, and that is how to read the data. If I don't see the data, then how will I manipulate the data? And for that, there is my favorite extension, that is VS Code extension for reading data. So let's get into it. So for if you have using cursor, WinSub, or any VS Code 4 paste like ID, so go to extensions here like this and search for this particular extension, and that is PostgreSQL directly. Like this particular extension, you can see this is the username CKOLKMAN. So you can go to this extension, and again it will be it will be install option for you. So just install this, and once you have installed this, pin this particular extension. I've pinned this particular extension, and you can see I've connected. So if you want to connect any Postgres database, so it can be a public URL, private URL, anything, just give the use like localhost. So right now it is my localhost is already there. So paste that URL here, and maybe for example, let me do some random experiment. So if I paste this one, now it is asking me the root, like the username. What is the username? So I will do the Postgres. Now it is asking the Postgres like password. If I do the password, and it is now asking me the port. So these are all the information will be given by the URL where you have it will be stored in the URL where you have deployed your application, like your Postgres database. Now if I do this, it will use standard connection or secure connection. So I will say secure connection. Now it will try to connect, but it will throw an error because there is no such databases. So this is what I wanted to tell. This is how you can connect your local host database, and obviously you can always edit the connection. This is how you can edit the connection. You can see my database name is username is Postgres, password is Postgres. There is no default database. Label is localhost. Now if I refresh the items, now you can see whatever database we have created, that is random YouTube. Random YouTube is there. We have also created something called database name. Database name is also there. So you can see what are the schema. And similarly, all the database which I have created in my localhost, that is all stored. So you can see for Twitter scheduler, I created random databases. So you can see Twitter is there, and these are the tables. And if you want to see the data, run select top 10,000, and it will read the data for you. So you can see these are the data you can read. And if you want to delete this particular row, now I can select this ID, delete this ID from account. To try, I don't have to write any command. I can just ask AI to generate the query, and I can just paste that and it will do the query. So this was all about how to use the Postgres database in the local host. Now tomorrow I will talk about how to use Drizzle ORM into your Next.js application, how to deploy, like how to get the public URL from Supabase, NeonDB, whatever platform you want to use for your database connection. And we will upgrade our learnings, and this was the basic I want to tell how to use database and how to use Postgres. So this was it guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.